Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Our regional councillor, Penny Gaylor, a very good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning, and did you play that song just for me?
Not at all.
There's something in the water.
Yeah.
We're hoping it's not toxic algae.
Before we get on to the really big news, I've had so many people talk to me about the occasion. Last time you talked, you were literally on the banks of the twinkling Waikanai River, and a lot of people involved in that. They seem to be very impressed. I've talked to many people who are involved in that. The thing that intrigues me, Penny, is that it was about the restoration of the Waikanai River. Does that imply the Waikanai River's in trouble?
Well, no, not in dire trouble, but we know that our human contact keeps putting more and more pressures onto our waterways. And of course, the Waikanai River in itself is significant, but also because we have put civilization and communities around it, and we've become more and more dependent on it, particularly as a water source for about 38,000 people in this district. So, that we take some water out of it at the top end also makes us have this responsibility to making sure that the rest of it just stays in good nick, but gets in even better nick in some ways. So then there's other things like, there has been a downstream of the water extraction. There has been already some spotting of toxic algae, thankfully not yet sort of significant mats that then dislodge and other kind of the poisonous bits to our dogs and human contact. But also because we love to do our recreational activities along that Waikanai River and in that Waikanai River, there's certainly a lot of work that's going on to form those walkways, to care for those walkways, because Mother Nature, she's feisty, and she'll, when there's the big downpours and the fresh flush through, and then the river goes, I might just move a little bit more to the left or move a bit to the right, and taking out some track, taking out some planting. This is stuff just happening all the time. So, you don't do something on a river and then walk away from it. It's just ongoing.
By the way, I've never asked you this before, but what's your view about the idea of, in fact, the practice of when the river is low, to replenish the river with bore water? Is that something that you are comfortable with?
Well, that's and that when we think about what's the water that you're extracting from a bore, and it's all consented and checked, and so there's nothing, in that water that you wouldn't want to see in your river anyway. So we wouldn't be putting anything that, any new contaminants into it. And so it's all part of a very thorough consenting process that KCDC does get through the regional council. It makes sense, because if you're then supplementing the water that you might need from the river, which I think has that actually only ever happened once, if at all, in all the years we've now had this water extraction process in the Waikanai River, that it actually means that other things are going to survive further down the track in terms of the river. So the fish life and the all the things that are happening downstream, and making sure that the river does keep flushing through, because that's why we get toxic algae, is in those summer months when we don't have enough water running through the river, and then they kind of it grows because in the shallow water areas. So actually flushes coming through are very important for the health of the river.
And you've got no concerns about the reported mineral content of the bore water. That won't have any effect on the wildlife?
Well, as I say, all these things, the consenting is done on the basis of all the science. And so as long as the scientists tell me and tell other colleagues, because I'm not a scientist, as long as they tell us that, all these levels are safe or inappropriate, we'll stay happy. And we have people employed at Regional Council that's just all part of the ongoing monitoring. That's how we know that there has been some toxic algae in the Waikanai in the last couple of weeks. And that's how we knew what was happening last year, because between KCDC staff and regional council staff, we have arrangements about who's looking after which bits and doing testing and monitoring, and then we get onto the testing pretty pronto. So all that is happening all the time.
The reason I'm pressing you a bit on this is that it's not just a matter of personal and regional interest for you now, it's a matter of portfolio interest, because you've just received what seems to me to be a very substantial promotion within the regional council. Congratulations. What are you now, and what does it mean?
All right, so yesterday we had our council meeting for regional council, and it was setting up the structure for our committees for the next 3 years, and consistent with how we operated for the last few years. We put in a structure, and as an environmental organisation, we have an environment committee, and I am the new chair of that, so very excited.
I have to say, I've got the press release here, and of all of the committees listed, the environment one comes first. It's a very important committee, isn't it?
Yes, I promise I didn't write that media release. So yes, it is. We are an environmental organisation, and so we have a very wide brief as a regional council, and it's across the entire Wellington region. And of course, the Wairarapa, our cousins in the Wairarapa, that's 75% of the land mass for the whole of the Wellington region.
Yes, yes, indeed.
An awful lot of happening over there. So going from term cutting my teeth, and now being chair of that, very exciting. There'll be lots of other bits and bobs that then draws me into, and we've also formed, as part of our climate, a declaration of climate emergency at Regional Council. We're taking things very serious. We've also formed a climate committee, which will meet kind of 4 times a year, and we're still working through the terms of reference for that, but that's more of a strategic level kind of discussion. And then I guess, so we're sort of working through the terms of reference on all that at the moment. But yes, no, I'm very excited about this next 3 years.
Well,
it's going to be lots of really interesting conversations, and we hope a lot of really good successes for our community.
It seems to me the council has veered towards a climate-focused natural resources, mana whenua, that sort of thing. Is that the way you feel it at the moment?
Yes, I think, certainly the last 18 months, the public awareness of what our organisation does has been very much focused on the public transport issues. And so I'd just also add that I am still on the Transport Committee, so certainly won't be losing sight of the conversations that we need to have in terms of maintaining the newer, better level of service we have in Kapiti because of our new bus fleet. But of course want to keep driving that we get across the line the new trains that get people in Otaki down to Wellington, etc. But as new Chair Darren Ponta did in his opening, speech from the throne, shall we say, talked about, while all that stuff around transport's been happening and in the face and in the ear of people, certainly at our core fundamental function is an environmental organisation. That is why a regional council gets formed. We're governed by the RMA and a whole lot of government legislation that is all about environmental impacts and action. So, we need to make sure that we recognise that our core function is environmental activities.
And interesting, I'd like to go back to the Wairarapa because I think that's particularly interesting. 70% of the land mass. But I imagine a lot of the potential challenges are there as well, in that the Wairarapa has been subject quite regularly to floods, climate extremes. I mean, it's a lovely place. I'm not dissing it at all. But it's a fact that there are some climatic and environmental issues there. And also the fact that a lot of nervousness about the Hikuringi trench, the potential for a very large earthquake and tsunami to come from the trench, which could well affect, almost certainly will affect, the Wairarapa. This must mean a lot of planning has to go into the Wairarapa.
Yeah, and I think it was a about 2.5 years ago now, we, Regional Council, revealed the findings of a NIWA report that was very focused on what are the impacts on the Wellington region potentially for climate change. And what that showed was the weather conditions will be very different over the Wairarapa to over here in Kapiti, for example. So that greatly affects the kind of planning that we put in place. So here in Kapiti, we'll be getting fiercer storms, and it's more rain on our kind of land areas, not up Mataura, and then that rain coming down through our channeled rivers. So our streams will be under greater pressure, and just our flat areas of land will be under more pressure. But over in the Wairarapa, they are going to we know Wairarapa can get pretty hot in the summer, right? Mm-hmm. Just you wait. It's going to get even hotter, and it's going to get even hotter at a time when they have even less rainfall. So then when the rain does come, it's going to come a lot all at once. And so, all those kind of dramatic impacts that then unfold because of extreme hot, extreme wet, just kind of all the worst case scenarios kind of colliding essentially. And then what comes down off your hills. So, the work that the Regional Council does with the nursery that we have in the Wairarapa, they're growing, I think it's about 300,000 trees a year. And a lot of that is going on to the hill country in the Wairarapa to try and manage all the unstable hill country over there to make sure that all that precious soil doesn't end up in the riverbed.
Indeed. Challenges galore, and
it's going to be job.
It's a big job, and I'm going to enjoy having conversations about it in the future. Yes. Penny, thank you.
Talk about.
Yes, indeed, and lots of very, I imagine, satisfying work to be done as well. So, congratulations on the appointment, and perhaps we can talk again sometime.
Lovely.
Thank you very much. There we are, Regional Councillor for Kapiti, Penny Gaylor.
106.3 Beach FM.